My name is Elena. I did not believe in visions. And I certainly did not believe that a Tuesday morning in October would be the day I crossed the line between the living and the dead. I want to be very clear with you from the start. I am not telling you this to convince you of my politics or to frighten you into a specific religion. I am telling you this because I was sent back with a weight I can no longer carry alone. I experienced a near-death experience that tore the fabric of my reality apart. And what I saw on the other side has changed the way I look at every headline, every face, and every sunrise. It happened at 7:15 a.m. I was standing in my kitchen. The house was quiet in that heavy, comfortable way it gets when the kids are grown and gone. My husband, Mark, had already left for work. The coffee maker was gurgling, that familiar rhythmic sound that usually signaled the start of a productive day. I was staring out the window at the oak tree in the backyard, thinking about a lesson plan on the Cold War. I remember thinking about how fragile peace is. I remember looking at the yellow leaves and thinking I needed to call the gardener. That was the last normal thought I had. It didn't start with pain. That's a misconception people have. They think death always announces itself with a scream. For me, it started with a sound. A sharp, high-pitched frequency that wasn't coming from the kitchen or the street. It was coming from inside the center of my head. It sounded like a tuning fork being struck against the base of my skull. I dropped my mug. I didn't hear it shatter. I saw the ceramic pieces skitter across the linoleum, the dark liquid spreading like a shadow, but the sound was muffled, distant, like I was underwater. Then came the pressure. It felt as though gravity had suddenly increased 10 times over. My knees buckled. I reached for the granite counter, my fingers scrambling for purchase, but my hand felt numb, alien. It didn't belong to me anymore. I slumped to the floor, my cheek pressing against the cold tiles, right next to the puddle of coffee. I tried to call out for Mark, forgetting he wasn't there. I tried to say, "Help." But my tongue was heavy lead in my mouth. My vision began to tunnel. The edges of the room, the refrigerator, the calendar on the wall, the morning light hitting the cabinets began to blur and dissolve into a static gray. I knew, with a terrifying absolute clarity, this is it. I am dying. Panic should have set in. In those first few seconds, there was a surge of biological terror. My heart was fluttering like a trapped bird, erratic and weak. I could feel the blood slowing in my veins. It was a sensation of draining, of emptying out. But then, right at the precipice, the fear evaporated. It was replaced by curiosity. I felt a pop. That is the only way I can describe it, like a cork being pulled from a bottle of wine. Suddenly, I was standing up. I looked down. The first thing I noticed was that my knees didn't hurt. I have had arthritis in my knees for a decade. The ache was gone. I felt light, impossibly light. I looked at the floor and saw a woman lying there, tangled in a blue bathrobe. Her face was slack, her eyes half open and unseeing. The coffee was soaking into her hair. It took me a profound, confusing moment to realize that the woman was me. I was hovering near the ceiling, looking down at my own body. It looked so small, so uninhabited. It looked like a coat someone had taken off and thrown on the floor. I felt no attachment to it. That was the strangest part. I didn't feel sad for that body. I felt a sense of relief, like stepping out of tight shoes after a long day of walking. "Elena?" I thought I spoke, but there was no voice. It was pure thought. The kitchen began to fade. The walls didn't crumble. They just became transparent, losing their solidity. The physical world was becoming less real, and something else was becoming more real. I drifted. I didn't walk. I simply moved through intention. I passed through the ceiling, through the roof of my house. I saw the neighborhood below me, the neatly arranged streets, the cars moving slowly like toys, the morning mist clinging to the lawns. But I wasn't cold. I wasn't breathing air. I was pure consciousness. I felt a pull. It wasn't a wind, it was magnetic. It was drawing me upward and outward, away from the earth, away from the life I had built, away from the history books and the lesson plans. I was entering a space that was not dark, but it wasn't light either. It was a velvet void. It felt pregnant with life, buzzing with energy. In this space, I realized that I was not alone. I couldn't see anyone yet, but I could feel presences, millions of them. It was like standing in a stadium with your eyes closed, feeling the heat and the hum of a crowd, but multiplied by infinity. I began to review my life, but it wasn't a movie screen. It was holographic. I was reliving moments, but not just from my perspective. I was inside the moments. I was 6 years old, stealing a piece of candy from my sister. I felt the momentary thrill of the theft, but simultaneously, I felt my sister's confusion and sadness when she couldn't find it. I felt her small heart break. I was 25, arguing with my mother. I felt my own self-righteous anger, but I also felt her fear that she was losing me, her desperate love trying to hold on. I felt every time I had been kind and every time I had been cruel. And there was no judgment from outside. No man in a chair pointing a finger. The judgment came from me. I had to feel the impact I had on the world. It was a cleansing fire. It burned, but it was a fire that healed. I understood then that life is not a series of random events. It is a web. Every thought, every word, every small action vibrates forever. Nothing is lost. As I moved deeper into this void, the speed increased. I was traveling faster than light, moving toward a destination I couldn't name but recognized with every fiber of my soul. I was going home. And then I saw the light. It wasn't a lamp or a sun. It was a living, breathing brilliance. It was golden and white and blue all at once. It radiated a love so intense that I thought it would shatter my consciousness. In our world, love is an emotion. We feel it, then we don't. It fluctuates. There, love is the atmosphere. It is the physics of that realm. You breathe it in. You are made of it. I moved toward it, or rather, it moved toward me. I knew that if I entered that light completely, I would never return to the kitchen with the spilled coffee. I would never grade another paper. I would never hug Mark again. And I didn't care. The peace was so total, so absolute, that the idea of returning to Earth felt like a punishment. I wanted to dissolve into that light. I wanted to be one with it. But as I reached the edge of the brilliance, a figure stepped forward from the center of the glow. He did not look like the pictures I had seen in Sunday school. He wasn't wearing robes that looked like costumes. He was made of the light, yet distinct from it. He had a form, human-like, but grander. His eyes were not just eyes. They were gateways. When he looked at me, I felt completely exposed. He knew every secret, every shame, every hidden hope I had ever held. And he loved me anyway. I knew, without being told, that this was Jesus. But this wasn't the Jesus of a specific denomination. He wasn't the property of a church. He was the master of the realm. He was the focus point of the love I was feeling. He stopped me just before I could merge with the light. He held up a hand, not to push me away, but to pause me. "Elena," he said. He didn't use words. His voice resonated inside my chest, deeper than my own thoughts. "You have come far, but you are not finished." I tried to argue. "I don't want to go back. It's too heavy there. It hurts there." He smiled, and the smile was like the sun breaking over a mountain range. "I know, but there is something you must see. There is something you must understand. The world is trembling, and my children are asleep." He extended his hand toward me. "Come, let me show you what is to come." When I took his hand, the velvet void vanished. The sensation of floating ceased. We were suddenly standing on what felt like a balcony or a high precipice overlooking the entire Earth. But it wasn't the Earth you see from a satellite. It wasn't just blue oceans and green continents. I was seeing the Earth through his eyes. I saw the physical planet, yes, but overlaying it was a complex, shimmering web of energy. I saw millions of threads of light crisscrossing the globe. Some were bright and strong. These were prayers, acts of kindness, moments of love. But there was also a dark, suffocating fog rolling over vast territories. It looked like smoke, heavy and oily. It was the physical manifestation of fear, hatred, and division. "Look closer," he said. His presence beside me was a constant source of strength. Without him, the sight would have been too terrifying to bear. The view zoomed in. The globe rotated beneath us. I saw borders, not drawn on a map, but drawn in the energy of the people living there. I saw the United States. I saw the Korean Peninsula. The atmosphere over these two places was vibrating with an intensity that made the air around us hum. "The time of shadows is approaching," he communicated to me. "Humanity believes it is fighting for land or resources or ideology. But the war is for the soul of the species." I saw two faces emerge from the energy of these nations. They weren't static portraits. They were living representations of the leaders at that moment. I saw Donald Trump, and I saw Kim Jong-un. Now, please understand, in that place, there was no political bias. Jesus did not look at them with the lens of a voter or a news anchor. He looked at them with a profound, aching sadness and a fierce reality. He showed me that these men were not just individuals acting on their own. They were focal points. They were lightning rods attracting the collective consciousness of the world. "Do you see the cords?" he asked. I looked closer. Attached to both men were millions of invisible cords. These cords stretched out to the people of their nations and the world. Every time someone felt hatred toward them, a black cord attached. Every time someone worshipped them blindly, a gray cord attached. Every time someone prayed for them with genuine wisdom, a gold cord attached. But the black and gray cords were overwhelming. "They are trapped," I realized. I said it out loud to him. "They are trapped by the energy of the world." He nodded. Leadership is a mirror. The world looks at these men and sees its own fear, its own aggression, its own desire for power. They are playing out a drama that the human heart has written. Then the scene shifted. He showed me a timeline. It wasn't fixed. It was fluid, shimmering like water. I understood that the future is not set in stone, but it is a probability based on the current momentum of human choice. I saw a flashpoint. It looked like a spark jumping between the United States and North Korea. It wasn't just a diplomatic argument. I saw the energy of pride, massive, swelling pride, rising up in both leaders like a tsunami. "We are not ready," he said. The words were heavy, like stones dropping into a deep well. "Not ready for what?" I asked, trembling. "You are not ready for the mirror to break." He showed me a potential future, one that was very close to manifesting. In this vision, I saw the rhetoric escalate. I saw the pride of one man colliding with the paranoia of the other. It was a dance of egos that the world watched as entertainment, not realizing the gun was loaded. I saw a moment of miscalculation, a command given in anger. The sky in the vision turned white. I recoiled, covering my face, even though I didn't have a physical body. The horror of it was absolute. It wasn't the destruction of buildings that hurt the most. It was the sudden mass ejection of souls. I saw thousands of spirits ripped from their bodies in an instant of confusion and pain. "This is the path of sleep," he said softly. "This is what happens when men lead without spirit and when the people follow without discernment." But then, he waved his hand, and the vision cleared. The white flash disappeared. "That is one path," he said, "but it is not the only one." He turned to me, and his eyes were burning with urgency. "This is the moment where I need you to listen closely. This wasn't just a history lesson, it was a warning. The world focuses on the politics, he told me. They focus on the treaties and the sanctions. But the future of these two nations and the safety of the world does not depend on the signatures on a paper. It depends on the spiritual maturity of the collective. He showed me the two men again, Trump and Kim. But this time, he showed me what was happening in their hearts. I saw deep, cavernous insecurities. I saw the boy inside the dictator, terrified of losing control. I saw the man inside the president, desperate for validation. They are broken men, Jesus said, and broken men break worlds. He paused, and the silence of the universe seemed to lean in. Elena, the message you must take back is this. You are not ready because you still believe the enemy is outside of you. You look at these leaders and you hate them, or you idolize them. Both are errors. As long as you project your power onto them, they will lead you into the fire. I felt a wave of despair. But what can we do? I'm just a teacher. People are just people. We don't have the codes to the weapons. He smiled again, but this time it was stern. You have the codes to the reality. He showed me a third option. I saw a different timeline. In this version, I saw the people of the world, not the politicians, but the people waking up. I saw groups of people praying, not for their side to win, but for peace to descend on the minds of these leaders. I saw a collective wave of calmness rising up from humanity, a refusal to be baited into fear. I saw this energy, this gold light, wrapping around Trump and Kim. It acted like a dampener. It cooled their tempers. It clarified their thoughts. It made the air around them less volatile. In this timeline, they met. They shook hands. But it wasn't a show. It was a de-escalation. The weapons stayed in their silos. The white flash never happened. The future is not decided by the kings, Jesus said. It is decided by the consciousness of the many. But right now, you are not ready. The hate is too loud. The fear is too delicious to you. He looked at me with an intensity that pierced my soul. You must go back and tell them that the screen they watch is a reflection of their own souls. If they want peace in the world, they must lower the volume of the war in their own hearts first. If they continue to feed these men with hate, they will receive hate in return. I felt the pull of the earth again. It was tugging at my ankles. I can't, I whispered. They won't listen. They'll think I'm crazy. Some will, he said, and some won't. But you are a witness. You have seen the precipice. Before we continue to the final part of my journey, I want to ask you something. As you listen to this, can you feel the tension in your own life? The anger you hold for people you've never met? That energy is real. It goes somewhere. If you are feeling a connection to this story, if you feel that quiet hum of truth in your chest, I invite you to just take a breath with me. You don't have to subscribe to anything. Just simply be here in this moment and open your mind to the possibility that your thoughts are more powerful than you know. The vision of the leaders faded, but the gravity of what I had seen remained. I was standing with him in the void, the earth swirling below us like a fragile blue marble. The phrase, "We are not ready," echoed in my mind, vibrating against the peace of that place. I looked at Jesus. I wanted to stay in his presence forever. The love emanating from him was the only thing that made sense. The world below, with its nuclear codes, its angry rhetoric, its borders and politicians, seemed like a chaotic nightmare I had woken up from. Why me? I asked. It was the only question I could form. I'm not a prophet. I'm a history teacher. I teach about things that have already happened, not things that might happen. He looked at me with compassion that felt like warm water washing over a wound. Because you understand history, Elena. You know that civilizations rise and fall not because of luck, but because of the spirit of the people. You know that Rome didn't fall just because of armies. It fell because it rotted from within. The world is at that point again. He gestured to the earth. The revelation is not just about Trump or Kim, he continued. They are merely the symptoms. The disease is the separation. Humanity has forgotten that you are all cells in the same body. When the finger attacks the hand, the whole body bleeds. He moved closer to me. The distance between us vanished. I felt his consciousness merging with mine. It wasn't just words anymore. It was a direct download of understanding. I suddenly knew things I had never learned. I understood that the end times people speak of are not a calendar date set by a vengeful God. They are a threshold of maturity. We are growing up as a species, and we are currently in the turbulent teenage years, reckless, armed, and dangerous. The danger, he showed me, is that you have the technology of gods, but the emotional maturity of children. You have built weapons that can crack the planet, yet you still hate your neighbor for voting differently. This was the core of the message. The warning about Trump and Kim was a specific example of a universal law. We are placing immense power in the hands of individuals who are reflections of our collective shadow. If the collective consciousness shifts, he told me, the leaders will shift. They have no choice. They are riding the waves you create. If you want a different future, you must change the frequency of the wave. Then the tone changed. The warning was delivered. Now came the decision. It is time, Elena, he said gently. I backed away. No, please, I can't go back to that body. It's broken. It's heavy. The coffee is spilled on the floor. My knees hurt. The world is too loud. I felt a desperate, childish panic. The thought of squeezing my expanded, limitless soul back into that dense biological container was horrifying. It felt like being asked to crawl into a coffin. You have a husband who needs you, he said. You have students who need to see that history is not just a circle of violence. You have a voice. I don't want a voice, I cried. I want peace. The peace is yours to keep, he promised. You will carry it with you. It will be a shield. When the world screams, you will hear the silence of this place. When the fear rises, you will remember the light. He reached out and touched the center of my chest. A burst of heat, like a star exploding, filled me. Remember, he commanded, the future is fluid. Prayer is not begging. It is tuning. Tune the world to peace, Elena. He stepped back. The light began to swirl around me. The velvet void spun. I tried to grab onto the hem of his radiance, to anchor myself there, but the pull of the earth was irresistible now. It was a vacuum, sucking me down. I saw the earth rushing up to meet me. The blue and white expanded, filling my vision. I saw the continent, the state, the town, the roof of my house. I went through the roof. I saw my kitchen. There were paramedics there now. The room was chaotic. A man in a uniform was kneeling over my body. Mark was there, his face pale, his hands gripping the edge of the counter, his knuckles white. I saw them working on me. I saw the defibrillator paddles. "Clear!" someone shouted. I didn't want to go in. I hovered near the ceiling, fighting it. Let me go, I thought. Let me go back to him. But the body below gasped. It was a mechanical, ugly sound, a vacuum of air rushing into dead lungs. And then I was slammed. It wasn't a gentle re-entry. It was a collision. It felt like being dropped from a 10-story building onto concrete. The pain was instantaneous and overwhelming. The headache was blinding. The aneurysm that had sent me away was now a throbbing reality. My chest burned from the shock. My limbs felt like they weighed 1,000 pounds. I was back. I opened my eyes. The light of the kitchen was harsh, artificial, stinging. I tried to focus. A face loomed over me. "She's back," a voice said. "We have a pulse." I tried to speak. I wanted to say, "I saw him." I wanted to say, "We are not ready." But all that came out was a groan, Mark was there, grabbing my hand. His hands were shaking. "Elena? Elena, can you hear me?" I squeezed his hand. It took every ounce of strength I had. Tears leaked from the corners of my eyes. Not tears of joy that I was alive. Tears of grief that I was no longer there. I was back in the world of shadows, but I carried the memory of the sun. Recovery was slow. The doctors called it a miracle. They said the bleed in my brain should have killed me, or at least left me unable to speak or walk. They used words like lucky and unexplained. They didn't know that I had been sent back. For the first few months, I didn't tell anyone, not even Mark. How do you tell your husband that you watched the world hang in the balance between two nuclear powers while standing next to Jesus? How do you explain that the news on the television looks like a puppet show to you now? I sat in my living room, watching the headlines. I saw the tensions rise between the US and North Korea. I saw the summits. I saw the tweets. I saw the fear-mongering. And every time I saw Trump or Kim on the screen, I didn't see monsters or saviors. I saw the chords. I remembered the vision of the black and gray threads suffocating them. I remembered Jesus saying, "Broken men break worlds." I started to change. Before the NDE, I was a worrier. I stressed about grades, about retirement funds, about what people thought of me. All of that vanished. It became impossible to worry about small things when you know the architecture of eternity. I went back to teaching, but my method changed. I stopped focusing just on the dates of battles. I started asking my students, what was the fear that caused this war? What was the collective emotion of the country before this dictator rose to power? I tried to show them that history is a reflection of human consciousness. One day, I finally told Mark. We were sitting on the back porch, watching the sun set. I told him everything. I told him about the pop, the void, the light. I told him about the meeting with Jesus. And I told him about the warning. He said we aren't ready, I told Mark, my voice trembling. He said that as long as we hate these leaders, we are feeding the fire. We have to change the energy. Mark is a logical man. I expected him to dismiss it, but he looked at me and he saw the truth in my eyes. You can't fake the look of someone who has seen the other side. What do we do? He asked. We refuse to hate, I said. We pray for wisdom, not just for our side, but for the enemy. We have to be the gold threads in the web. Since then, my life has been a quiet mission. I am not famous. I don't have a church. But I know what I saw. I saw that the future is not fixed. The devastation I saw, the white flash, the souls ejected, was a possibility. It was the path of sleep. But the path of awakening is also there. The revelation is simple, but it is hard to live. We are the authors of the world we see. Jesus showed me that the tension between global superpowers is a macrocosm of the tension in our own living rooms. If we cannot make peace with our families, how can we expect nations to make peace? If we cannot govern our own tempers, how can we expect leaders to govern their armies? We are not ready yet, but we can be. Every time you choose understanding over knee-jerk anger, you are cutting a black cord and weaving a gold one. Every time you refuse to be terrified by the news and instead send a thought of peace to the situation, you are altering the timeline. I am still a teacher, but now I know that the final test isn't on paper. The final test is whether we can wake up before the mirror breaks. I live in two worlds now. I walk on this earth. I drink my coffee. I grade my papers. But part of me is still standing on that precipice with him, watching the blue marble spin, holding my breath, waiting to see which future we will choose. Thank you for listening to my story. I hope when you look at the world now, you don't just see the chaos. I hope you see the threads. And I hope you choose to weave the gold ones.